Hi guys, this is Zenfone.com and I'm here with the ASUS Zenfone 10 for a review. This is one of the smallest phones I've ever used and it follows up on the Zenfone 9 which had a similar footprint. It's for those people who have small hands but also require a lot of power and a camera with a gimbal apparently. Even though Vivo has given that up, well ASUS hasn't, so they're still offering that at the backside. So it has a Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 processor inside, it has a pretty large battery and a pretty high refresh rate considering the format, 144Hz. It's supposed to be your everything phone except for, well, zoom, lacking a telephoto camera. But even that has sort of a fix. It's time for the review and you should know that the product is priced at around $700 to $800. Now first things first, this thing is built pretty blocky. It has a flat frame, it has a flat screen, and it also has this back which is available in quite a few colors: blue, black, green, red and white. Once again, the design is blocky. They decreased the, I would say, extra adherent texture of the predecessor, which was a bit like sandpaper, too much like sandpaper. Now it's more gentler to the touch, the new Zenfone. It has IP68 certification, it measures 9.4 millimeters in thickness, which is rather bulky by today's standards. It weighs a decent 172 grams, which is to be expected for a phone which has a diagonal of, well, below 6 inches. Aside from that, we're using here metal, basically aluminum for the frame. We have a glass at the front and a special polymer at the backside, which has an extra grippy texture. It's a very well built phone, but some people may feel discouraged by the size of the bezels around the rather small screen. Grip and one-hand usage are top level. Also Gorilla Glass Victus at the front for the screen. Now speaking of the screen, it's a 5.92 incher of the Super AMOLED variety, Full HD Plus resolution and a 144Hz refresh rate, which basically applies to games, otherwise 120Hz is the norm. HDR10 Plus and an 84% screen to body ratio. Yes, big bezels. Now when it comes to actual video watching, we have this test clip here and you can see for yourself that the punch hole may feel a bit bothersome at times, but the experience is quite satisfying. As far as brightness is concerned, the image is crisp and we also have some wide view angles, as you can see for yourself. And the color palette is pretty wide, but the colors here aren't as exaggerated vibrant as I've seen on other OLEDs, so that's nice. The pixels have a pentel matrix arrangement, and when it comes to the brightness, I'm happy to inform you that there's been an upgrade compared to the predecessor. Now, while the ASUS Zenfone 9, before it offered around 499 lux, this one offers almost 700, basically 690 lux units. So definitely an upgrade, and I'm definitely happy that things have been bumped up. Okay, so aside from that, I should probably also mention that we're surpassing the likes of the Huawei Mate 50 Pro and also a phone like, for example, the Nubia Red Magic 7S Pro, which is a new gaming phone. We're below the Galaxy S23 Ultra, we're below the Xiaomi 13 Pro and below the Huawei P60 Pro, but once again, not bad overall when it comes to the screen. And we also have a few options for the screen, especially the famous Splendid, which ASUS at some point made into a separate app. We have color and temperature option, screen color option, and a customized slider here if you want to get really, I don't know, granular about it. Okay, the refresh rate can be set to auto, 120, 90 or 60 Hz. It also varies on account of the performance setting you've well selected. Now, when it comes to the innards of the phone, the CPU is the already famous Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, the most powerful Qualcomm CPU right now. It's a 4nm chip, accompanied by quite the amount of RAM. 16 gigs LPDDR5X and half a terabyte of storage of the UFS 4.0 variety. Needless to say, the phone doesn't suffer from lag, but there is some heat here and there. I should probably mention that it does suffer a bit from throttling, so yeah, throttling is also a thing here. And I encountered that when doing the test, you can see here, and I think we also have some screenshots of that. We have quite a few screenshots, by the way, so bear with us. Okay, so this is the throttle test and you can see for yourself we lost 40% performance after about 5 minutes from the 15 minutes test. And I should probably mention that there's a bit of overheating in games and even when charging, so heat is not well dispersed in this tiny body. Aside from that, the results in the benchmarks are quite satisfying, so let's check them out. Usually ASUS achieves high results, so not exactly a surprise. Second placed, only after the ROG Phone 7 Ultimate in Antutu 9. In the brand new Antutu 10, the first placed phone beating the Xiaomi 13 Ultra and the Xperia 1 Mark 5. So as you can see, it's doing fine. A Geekbench 6 multi-core, 11th spot above the Motorola Edge 14, Oppo Find N2 Flip, below the Xiaomi 13 series and below as well the Honor Magic 5 Pro and the Huawei P60 Pro. When it comes to the gaming, there's 3D Mark with a very impressive score, 3rd spot after the Galaxy S23 Ultra and the Xiaomi 11T. All of this performance comes with a cost. Temperature 48.4 degrees Celsius in benchmarks, quite high, and in games 41.5. It definitely gets hot. I suppose it could require an update to fix it, because once again, when taking photos in the sunlight, when charging the phone, when playing games, it does get a bit hotter than it should. Now, as far as the battery is concerned, it's still a 4300 mAh unit, the same as the Zenfone 9, charges at 30 watts wireless, 30 watts via wire. We have a charger in the box, 15 watts wireless, and there is even 5 watt reverse charging with via wire. Now, the video playback we achieve here is quite impressive at 20 hours and 47 minutes. And even so, it's above the Honor Magic 5 Pro and the Huawei Nova 11 Pro plus the Huawei P60 Pro. It's below the OnePlus 11 and the Vivo X90 Pro, for example, plus a few other flagships from earlier this year which managed to surpass the 21-hour mark. I'm actually pretty impressed by the PC Mark result, 16 hours and 6 minutes. It goes above the Galaxy S23 Ultra and the Xperia 1 Mark 5, which is not bad at all. It's below the Zenfone 9, if you can believe it, and below the Zenfone 6, plus the Xiaomi 13 Pro. I'm underwhelmed by the charging, which requires actually 1 hour and 34 minutes for a full top-up, and after 13 minutes you're at 42%. The settings for the battery are interesting because they don't only just tweak the battery, they tweak the actual whole experience of the phone. So if you go here and you have the system modes, they actually handle the performance of the phone and may even affect the refresh rate. So yeah, be careful what you choose. We also have power saving modes which may add even more to your experience, adaptive battery, and also low battery power saving and battery care, which should take care of the cycles of your battery. As far as the acoustics are concerned, we have stereo speakers. There's one at the bottom and there's one at the top. The earpiece here, there's not a dedicated one, and believe it or not, there's even room for the audio jack. ASUS still believes in the idea of a audio wizard and DRAC technology. We have scenarios here, dynamic cinema, game, music, an equalizer with 10 channels, extra treble and bass, and we have here a typical acoustic sample to play with. Okay, so a bunch of ideas. We have plenty of bass, very nice high notes, satisfying voice. The back of the phone vibrates quite a bit. It's a pretty satisfying experience, and I feel that the speakers are pretty well calibrated stereo-wise. Now let's see what a decibel meter tells us. So we go here, volume power. We achieve 77.5 decibels at the top speaker and 82.4 decibels at the bottom speaker with an acoustic sample. These aren't exactly mind-blowing results, they're just fine. They go above OnePlus 11 and Zenfone 9, but they're below the Xiaomi 12T Pro and the Vivo X90 Pro. In gaming, I'm actually satisfied by the result we achieved here. Let's see. So if we go here, and multimedia, 99.9 decibels. The usual threshold is 100, so we're basically there. It's above the predecessor, above the Galaxy S23 Ultra, and above the Huawei P60 Pro, below the OnePlus 11, and the exact equal of the Honor Magic 5 Pro. As far as the camera is concerned, I'm sad to inform you that this selfie camera here doesn't have autofocus. It's a 32 megapixel shooter which outputs 8 megapixel shots and has an RGBW pixel setup, so an extra white pixel to deliver brighter shots. At the backside, there's a lot to talk about. A main 50 megapixel camera with 6-axis hybrid gimbal stabilization 2.0. Extra stabilization even compared to the predecessor, f1.9 aperture, and a 13 megapixel ultra wide camera with f2.2 aperture and 120 degrees. Sadly, no autofocus here, so we're left in the dark for our macro needs. We have also audio recording, and we have something called quick shot. I'm not sure if I can get it right, but I'm going to try it. Double press the volume button and you've already taken a bunch of shots. That's the quick shot. You activate it from the settings. If you see something great, you just quickly double press the volume buttons, and you should be done with the photo in 1.7 seconds. 3 photographs of something interesting. So that's nice. A bunch of other features like raw capture, which includes so much detail that can even replace zooming by cropping. That's one of the things. Okay, so we also have some light trail features and some other extras which you probably saw in the unboxing, but let's talk about the daytime pics. So I'm going to go ahead and say it, just like I said for the predecessor, there's overexposure and oversaturation. I know it's the summer, I know it's the heat, I know it's a very strong heat, but still, I didn't expect so much overexposure and oversaturation. On the other hand, the ultra-wide camera doesn't bring any deformations from the main camera. I mean, it keeps pretty much the same colors and doesn't do that curvature on the side, which some other phones do. So yeah, at least that's fine. Okay, what I particularly enjoyed here are the blues in the billboards, the blues of the sky. And while this may seem like a solid attempt at a close-up, later on I tried to capture flowers and I was definitely underwhelmed. Okay, so let's see what I liked here. I like the fact that you can take a decent bokeh of objects like this pink panther here by blurring the background, so yeah, that's fine. At the same time, I found the selfies to be quite nice, detail-wise. I particularly enjoyed the eyes here, the way the eyes are rendered and the hair. However, there's something weird which appears when you're doing the bokeh. The cut is pretty strange when you're doing the bokeh, and sometimes the hair can become a blur. But the texture is spot on for the skin, the beard, the eyes and the hair, so the selfies are actually quite solid for 8 megapixel shots. So yeah, for me this selfie camera works, even though bokeh is a bit hit and miss at times. This is what I was complaining about. We don't have a proper focus for total macros and very close close-ups, so yeah, 4 missed shots in a row definitely show a problem. However, if you get the distance right, you'll be very happy with the result. Lots of texture. And finally, a nice realistic color for a rose, unlike what other flagships achieve when confronted with a very strong sunlight. Another batch of selfies, this time with the glasses on, and check out here the fact that there are strands of hair which are being blurred by bokeh for some unknown reasons. Okay, red roses, as usual, a problem for most phones. The reds are too intense, but when you go into the shade, you'll actually be happy with the colors. There's a bit of contrast here. The camera hesitates a bit when it's confronted with sudden darkness coming after light, so it may make things extra dark to compensate for the sun. But once again, if you're in the shade, as I was here, you'll be pretty happy with the results. Main camera, ultra-wide camera, and as you can see, not a major change except for the details in the background. I'm obviously talking about the colors not being changed that much. This is Mickey Mouse with an example of bokeh as it's written here, and I find the back camera bokeh to be more satisfying than the front camera one, believe it or not. Some problems with the sun here and there. You can see the sun rays getting ahead of us in some of these shots, and I definitely recommend you see the gallery of photos we've done with this phone in a full proper version. I'm actually shocked that the rumors we heard before didn't come true. There were rumors about a 200 megapixel camera. They didn't pan out. So overall, all the colors are fine except for the green of the vegetation in the full sunlight, and be careful with the bokeh of the selfie camera. Otherwise, I'm pretty happy with what you achieved here, and the main problem is probably, in the end, the close-ups, the macros. Now let's talk about the low light, and before that I should mention that at its best these photos look like the OnePlus 11, at their worst like a mid-range phone, something like, I don't know, Honor 90 for example. Now let's talk about the low light pictures, and I have here some of them. So the first thing to remember is that you should definitely use the night mode, because as you can see here there are some purple hues and the street light halos may seem a bit too big at times. Okay, so ultra wide obviously distorts things and increases the size of the halos even more, plus there's a lot more noise here happening in the distance with ultra wide. Here there is a bit of zoom, as you can see, which is, I would say, decent. This is your regular shot, and this is the same shot but with the night mode on. I mean, this one is pretty fine in its own. This one gets a bit, I would say, more orange and slightly green, but overall I feel that there's a bit more personality to the nighttime shots. They actually look a bit better than the regular ones. The regular ones don't tell much of a story. They're pretty bland, if you ask me. And the zoom, by the way, isn't half bad during the nighttime, and also not half bad during the day if you use that special raw option properly. This looks like a not out of the ordinary shot, but with night mode it's definitely something to remember. There's a lot of nuance here and color shades to see, so yeah, basic and night mode. Definitely choose wisely. And well, that's about it. Stay away from ultra wide and stick to night mode. You should be happy with the results. Not exactly flagship level, but it can fight some second tier flagships like the Xperia 1 Mark V, or maybe let's say a lesser OnePlus from last year, the OnePlus 10T for example. Okay, we're very much done with the photos, so we can tackle videos now, and let's see if we have a proper player installed. Unless this has a video section, hopefully. Yes, finally, gallery with a video section. Okay, so let's get things going. I'm going to start with a focus test, I guess. This one here. Excellent switch between the foreground and the background. Very fast focus. And now I can also show some selfies. So we have two selfie videos. This is video number 1, which is happening without the stabilization, and as you can see, it's quite shaky. Some bass in my voice, which I enjoy, but check it out. So the other video is actually much steadier with the stabilization on. Big difference, and you can actually use it for vlogging, even though we're stuck to Full HD. No love for 4K here. Okay, let's find something more colorful, like this one here. I love the reds and the blues. Even the vegetation looks pretty nice compared to what we've seen in the photos, so color me impressed. There's a bit of overcompensation. The camera senses there's a lot of light going on because of the sun, and when it comes to darker area, it makes them much darker than they should be, trying to overcompensate for the lighter areas. And aside from that, I actually caught some crazy ants and a crazy level of detail. This is what 8K videos are for, I guess. For such scenery. Okay, and let's see some other clips. Of course, we did a stabilization test, actually not just one, we actually have 3 of them. So this is number 1 with the hyper steady. No, it's actually adaptive. The adaptive one, which lets you use 4K video. I actually shook the phone vertically and horizontally, and as you can see, the image is pretty still and crisp. So yeah, adaptive stabilization. Okay, and this is actually the hyper steady, I think. Yeah, this is it. This is better used when you're actually running and doing something more intensive, not just walking. You can tell there's zero shake here, so I'm actually pretty impressed by the stabilization. It's a gimbal after all, so it was to be expected. And finally, I also have a video without any sort of stabilization. You can see it's choppier, so definitely keep it on. Adaptive for 4K and steady for Full HD. Okay, we also have a nighttime video, which is a bit more underwhelming. The flicker is back. If you remember the flicker from the Zenfone 4, I think it's back. Appears every once in a while. There's a greenish hue, and all the hues tend to change when you're panning. At least when you're walking around, there's no problem with the image stabilization. So yeah, there's that. Nighttime videos have always been a problem for the Zenfones. I remember that ever since the start of the series. But the stabilization is on point. Connectivity wise, not much to complain about here. We have everything from 5G to even Wi-Fi 7. It's Wi-Fi 7 ready, and we have Wi-Fi 6E, Bluetooth 5.3, GPS, dual band, NFC, and an USB-C port 2.0 at the bottom. The calls were pretty loud and clear in my book, and we also did a bunch of speed tests, actually many of them, trying to see which are the results here. So in Wi-Fi I was happy with 728 megapsecond downloads and 723 megapsecond uploads. 5G was pretty modest at 50.7 over let's see here, something like 33.8 megapsecond downloads and uploads respectively. I expected a bit more from 5G, but it varies depending on the conditions of the network. Now, software-wise, there are a few elements to explore here. The software is rather basic and kept close to the stock thing. You're getting 2 years of Android updates, 4 years of security updates, and the secret is in the smart key here. You can swipe on it to trigger a variety of features. At its core, it holds the fingerprint scanner, but you can also swipe on it, as I just did, in order to trigger the notifications area, in order to scroll to web pages, and a few other purposes, which are obviously tweakable from the settings. You can even scroll around the videos. So advanced, smart key, double tap, long press, or swipe. The swipe is the core here. Check or pin notification, refresh web pages, home and the web pages, streaming video forward. So let's leave it to home and end a web page, and let's see if it happens or not. Yep, definitely happens. So yeah, those are some of its uses. You can also tap the backside, double tap or triple tap to take a screenshot or associate other purposes with it. So we can also associate a lot of features to this smart key here. However, a mate of mine actually asked me what's the purpose, because in the end the phone is already small, you can reach most areas with your finger. why do this extra gaming? And he had me thinking, because he's actually right. So I may have been impressed by it on the Zenfone 9, but now, is it really necessary? Not sure. Okay, aside from that, we have the Smart Key Mobile Manager here to tweak the resources, Game Genie for gaming needs. It's actually quite options filled. There are a lot of gaming options here. So yeah, and tweaks and settings taken from the ROG phones. Even though it's not a gaming phone and it's rather small, you do have the features. Twin apps, you can run 2 accounts in the same app. Edge tool, which is basically this bar here, which lets you trigger certain floating windows. And hopefully I didn't actually close this. Oh yes, I did. Okay, and I would say that's pretty much it. If I forgot anything, well, I have to say that there's not a lot of bloatware going on, and I'm happy with that. We do have a gallery app, and I also like that. Not a big fan of Google Photos when there are options. And in the end, I'm pretty happy with the software experience. There's always on display. There's an app drawer. There's tweaks here. You can keep the screen pressed to do your widgets options. Wallpaper and style are available here with the colors to draw from the background. And once again, always on display is part of the package. Okay, so when everything's said and done, time for the pros and cons. And actually, let me show you our web page here. Now, on the pro side, obviously compact phone, and seeing we don't have any iPhone mini and the Google Pixel A has increased in size, this is basically your only option if you have a small hand. So, comfy phone for people with small hands. It's the best small phone on the market. It's comfy, easy one-hand usage, bright screen, solid performance all around, good speakers, IP68 certification, audio jack, solid battery life, some pretty nifty selfies, and excellent gimbal stabilization. And pretty crisp videos, by the way. Now, on the cons list, it heats up. There's some overexposure and oversaturation for photos and videos. We're lacking a zoom and telephoto camera. It's rather bulky at its 9.4 millimeters. The charge takes a long time. There are some bokeh worries, and we only have 2 OS updates here. And I would say that sometimes the ultra-wide camera doesn't impress that much, especially during the night time. Okay, so that's pretty much it for me. Once again, the cores are the same as the Zenfone 9. You're getting a phone which is very easy to use with a single hand, maybe thanks to the Smart Key, maybe thanks to its format, and of course one of the best stabilization on the market with the gimbal. So I feel it's sort of like a traveler's phone if you're traveling light, because it's compact and stabilizes like a champ. Now, it's only up to you if you're willing to take the long charge and the oversaturation of the pictures, even though it's improved from the Zenfone 9 generation. Once again, a phone for travelers who like to pack light and film a lot in action. That's it from us. This has been the review of the Zenfone 10 from ASUS. Goodbye.